Similarly related to natural resource politics, and with the same problems facing it, is energy policy, as well as dealing with climate change. When we think about the United States, we often say that it doesn't have a national energy policy. But what does that mean? Well, we have a patchwork quilt of cross-cutting federal and state policies, which govern things like oil, gas, coal, and renewables. And as such, there's little coordination between the federal, the state, and even the local governments for how to deal with these. Well, what's the implications of this? Well, economically, for the United States versus other countries which tend to be state-run and very heavy-handed, think Russia or Saudi Arabia, it puts us at a disadvantage, in particular when the price of oil is high. We ultimately need more coordination, cohesion, and deliberateness, but we tend to operate under uncertainty. Politically, this means, well, we have gridlock. This results because the politics and policies across the states, again, are this patchwork quilt, whereas some states might prefer a more lax standard as it relates to energy policies, other states are more restrictive. Because of this, policies as it relates to energy are not comprehensive, but they're incremental. Short little band-aid fixes. Further, energy policy varies across time and is determined by the political makeup of the government at that point in time. We've seen some administrations push for stronger or stricter regulations for emissions and a greater investment in renewable energy. We've seen variation in agency control over the regulation over greenhouse gas emissions and dealing with things like climate change. And because of the severe gridlock in Congress, most of these efforts typically are directed through the use of executive orders by the president. As such, several goals have emerged across time as it relates to a national energy policy. Some administrations have focused on increasing our energy supplies. Others have focused on decreasing demand. Some have shifted the emphasis to renewable energy resources like wind and solar, and others have pushed more emphasis on the establishment of more nuclear power. Take a minute here and think about these four goals: increasing energy supplies, decreasing demand, shifting emphasis to renewables, or relying more on nuclear power. Which goals do you consider most important? Can you rank order these? Think about the pros and cons associated with each one. Think about the politics surrounding them, which would be feasible or not, both socially and politically. You can see how each goal applies to a different political party, a different person, a different individual, and varies even across time. This is what makes having a standardized national energy policy very difficult. Yet despite the gridlock, we have seen some bipartisan support for an energy policy, in particular, to reduce that uncertainty. We've seen renewed efforts to talk about the idea of cap and trade, a blending between economic and environmental interests. In doing so, the government would set a limit or a cap on emissions, and then over time, reduce the amount of pollution by lowering this cap. It would appease the economic sector by creating a market for carbon allowances, allowing companies to buy and sell their permits or trade their cap. This would allow larger companies to maintain production schedules, but created an incentive to emit less so that they don't have to pay as much. The funds ultimately would go into investment into companies for innovation in order to meet or come under the limit. Though this policy proposal still gets a lot of pushback because it will put an undue burden on the economic system. Yet there are many issues today which are emerging that are putting more of a strain on this partisan relationship, resulting in more gridlock. You've probably seen a lot in the news about the Keystone XL pipeline, which has become a symbol of the battle of climate change and fossil fuels. This is an oil pipeline system in Canada and the United States, commissioned in 2010. It runs from Alberta, Canada to refineries in Texas and Illinois. The new phase of development of this pipeline will create a shorter route with a larger diameter pipe. Yet this proposed route has faced criticism from environmentalists and members of the United States Congress, as well as varied by administration, from the Obama administration to the Trump administration. What this event highlights is concerns over American development and exploration of energy resources, in particular dealing with fracking of natural gas, extracting oil from tar sands, the potential resurgence of the coal industry and clean coal, and the expansion of nuclear power across the country. All of these bring into the conversation potential environmental risk and further greenhouse gas emissions from the extraction and usage of. This ultimately brings it back to the foundations of what is at the heart of a national energy policy. Is one focused on non-renewable energies or more renewable energies today?